Welcome to the Math Record. This video will cover Chapter 1 of Part 1 of our Statistics class. Today we'll be learning about collecting and organizing data. Disclaimer: this video will seem very intuitive, but the concepts covered are important when determining whether your data is safe to use. Okay, let's get started. When collecting data, we need to focus on the who, what, why, when, where, and how. This is very important. Whenever you're describing data, you need to put everything in context. In stats, you have to put everything in context. Okay, let's start on the who. The who is like who does the data represent? So you have to make sure that you're collecting the right data to represent the right people. So based on that, you have to know which one is the sample and which one is the population. The population is the group that you want to analyze. So let's say you want to like find the SAT scores of high schoolers, right? Then the high schoolers are your population. And if you're taking 20 of random people from those high schoolers, that will become your sample. So that covers the who. Next is what kind of data is it? So it's going to be, this would be part of the what. And there's two types. There is the categorical and there is the quantitative. Categorical is basically like anything that's not numbers, and quantitative is basically numbers. But sometimes there are some numbers that could be categorized as categorical. Like let's say ID, right? So like if you have a badge ID, then that is not really a number as a quantitative amount. It's gonna be a categorical. So an example of a categorical would be like colors. You know, like if you have colors, that's a categorical like red, white, blue, etc. And quantitative would be like, let's say, weight or size, basically, or like height, you know, basically anything that could be written with like numbers and units. So that's whenever you're gonna write anything in what kind of data is it, you gotta write the units. You always have to put everything in context. Um, Now let's move it on to the why. The why is why was the data collected? Like, why do you need this data for? Like, would this answer the question? And the second one to follow up is what does this data does or not appear to have like a trend? So does the data seem to have a trend or does it doesn't seem to have one? Like, is it just like, let's say if you have a scatter plot, does it seem like it's going up? You know, so it has a line going up, or does it just seem to be all over the place and you can't really use the data? So answering this question tells you if your data is usable. But there's something called association does not equal causation or something similar to that, where you can't just say that since you see a trend just because of one variable x that affects a variable y, it doesn't mean that x is affecting y. It means that x is associated with y. So if x increases, then y would increase. That's why it's associated. But it doesn't exactly prove that x is causing y. It's most likely causing y, but it's not likely to. It's not like for certain. In stats, you're not 100% sure all the time. And now we're gonna learn the where. This could be the same thing as when. This is just basically putting everything in context more. So it'll be like where was the data collected and when was the data collected to see if your data is like usable in like for like certain years or like if it's only works for certain demographics. And then finally, we have the last one, which is the how. Like how was the data collected? Because you want to know if it's like a survey. We're going to be covering this more in our future classes. There's going to be a survey, an observation, or it's gonna be experiment. So survey, you're just asking people. Observation, you're not giving them a choice, but you're just observing like what's happening in society around you, and you make like a trend to see so you can map it out. Experiment, you give them choices, and you see and you find out uh what they would do, or like I mean, or how they are affected. So that basically covers the how. It answers like if your data is also usable. All these who, what, why, when, where, and how answers like basically in context what your data represents and how you're collecting it and if it's usable. That basically covers the introduction to statistics. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next math record.